Last night, Vivek Ramaswamy appeared on CNN for a town hall, and boy, did we get a magic moment. Vivek Ramaswamy calls out January 6th, he calls out the Whitmer kidnapping plot, and CNN loses their minds. Abby Phillips repeatedly tries interrupting Vivek Ramaswamy after he's asked a question, and I love this. The media reports that Vivek was interrupting her. It's a town hall. Vivek is supposed to be the one speaking. This woman would not let Vivek share the truth on their platform. Well, I got to tell you, Vivek, January 6th does not look like an inside job, as he stated. It was an inside job. This is a fact. And I have to make sure I got to give the context to all of you, because so many of these people in media keep lying, saying it wasn't. Vivek Ramaswamy says January 6th looks like an inside job. And Abby Phillips says, what's your evidence that the government was involved in planning and orchestrating? And whoa, moving the goalposts much? Ain't nobody said that right now. I know some people have claimed it. That's not what I said. You see how they try to manipulate. This is how the fact check game works. I can say something like Donald Trump does a backflip, and then Snopes and these other fact checkers will say, did Donald Trump actually do a backflip as Tim Pool claims, ... on Saturday morning? False. And at the bottom of the page, after explaining everything about how he didn't actually do a backflip, it'll say, well, he did do a backflip on Monday morning. It wasn't over the weekend. That's how they play the game. So when you have video of police taking selfies with protesters, of police opening gates, of police opening doors, when you have stories in the corporate press of judges saying, yup, the cops opened the doors and let them in. My friends, inside job. Now, of course, the argument CNN is using, they play dirty games. They use words to manipulate. Yeah, well, I don't know how else they would do it, but they use selective words like rioter instead of protester interchangeably, so you don't actually know to what they're referring. If I was going to say January 6th was an inside job, quite simply, it's if you have 1,000 bank employees and 2 of them open the doors to let in the bank robbers and then pose for pictures, that's called an inside job. Elements within the victim building, within the target building, worked alongside those perpetrating the crime. For many of these people who walked into the Capitol building on January 6th, there was no riot. They were just rally goers. They weren't even protesters. And therein lies the issue. When many of these people are being charged in the exact same way as those who did fight cops, and the media will use J6er interchangeably with those who were rioting and those weren't. But then when it comes to this story, they'll use rioter to specifically refer to only those who were fighting in the front. They're doing that so that they don't have to admit factually many of the individuals who walked in the building were let in by police. But here's the story. Mediaite says Ramaswamy repeatedly interrupts Abby Phillips while standing by claim January 6th was an inside job during CNN town hall. Oh, boy. And we got a bunch of them. We got the New York Times. Ramaswamy pushes fringe idea about January 6th at town hall in Iowa. And then, of course, everybody's favorite, the Huffington Post. Vivek Ramaswamy doubles down on January 6th conspiracy theories. Okay. Well, how about I play for the video and you can hear from Vivek himself. Before we do, my friends, head over to thebestsongever.com. Link is in the description below and pre-order Together Again. This is a cover of a song by Jeremy Boring and Michael Knowles, a.k.a. Smokey Mike and the God King. They made their song as an FU to the music industry after they offered 100 times the rate, $150,000 to play one song. But the industry wouldn't let them. Why? Probably political reasons. For us, we put out music and people in the industry told us to F ourselves. Songs weren't even political. So you know what I said? Let's make a song that is going to mock the music industry. That's the whole point. Nothing in it. The song itself is not political. It's just a cover of the Daily Wire. And we are going to get this on Billboard. We are going to chart and we are going to laugh in their faces as, well, ideally, if this song were to hit the Hot 100, which I don't know, that's a tall order. And they are trying to keep us off. They would be forced to write about it. But here's the best part. Go to thebestsongever.com. Pre-order the song coming out on Friday, tomorrow. Actually, I think tonight at midnight, which is tomorrow. Pre-order the song and you'll receive a 35% off code for Cast Brew Coffee. That is good for 2 weeks and good for all subscriptions. Let me stress this. The song costs 69 cents. You buy the song, you take that unique code you get, you go to castbrew.com. You can subscribe to our monthly coffee club at 35% off indefinitely. You got this 1 week to do it. But again, I will stress, that means if you just buy coffee right now at castbrew.com, you're supporting the show and our work. You'll get 35% off if you bought the song. But if you subscribe and join the coffee club, that 35% will be for you forever. And it's a great cross promotion, but go to thebestsongever.com, help us out. Let's jump to the news. Let's first, maybe I should just pull up Vivek's video. Vivek Ramaswamy tweets, "Too bad for CNN will take the truth on January 6th mainstream. There is clear evidence that there was at very least entrapment of peaceful protesters, similar to the fake Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot and countless other cases. The FBI won't admit how many undercover officers were in the field on January 6th. Capitol Police, on one hand, fired rubber bullets and explosives into a peaceful crowd who they then willingly later allowed to enter the Capitol. That doesn't add up, and the actual evidence turns the prior narrative upside down. If the deep state is willing to manufacture an insurrection to take down its political opponents, they can do anything. Once you see it, you can't unsee it." Here's the video clip of Vivek, and we can I'll break down a bit of what he says, and I'll clarify. I don't completely agree with his framing, and I think there's a better way to put it. When Vivek says that there may have been feds and the police fired into the crowd, inciting the crowd, that's not the same as an inside job. You can make the argument that, well, when asked, the government said, we can't tell you how many people were there. So it sounds like there were, because otherwise it should be like, none. Next question. Why would they even bother entertaining the possibility they were there? Silly. But these are all speculative. You could argue that they fired rubber bullets and threw explosives into a peaceful crowd. The video footage proves this. You can argue that incited, but it doesn't prove an inside job. Vivek, there is actually one simple thing that does prove an inside job, and it is that police opened the doors and let them in, which you do bring up.
Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
So here's my concern, Abby, and I want to tell you guys where I'm at. If you had told me, it's close to 3 years ago that January 6, 2021 happened. If you had told me 3 years ago, back when I was a biotech CEO, not steeped in this world, I was just consuming passive media, but was focused on my world of developing medicines. If you had told me that January 6 was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk. Fringe conspiracy theory nonsense. I can tell you now, having gone somewhat deep in this, it's not. I mean, the reality is this. We do have a government, first of all, we have to acknowledge, that has lied to us systematically over the last several years about the origin of COVID-19, about the Hunter Biden laptop that we were told was false by 51 CIA experts and otherwise before we now know that it was true. You can go straight down the list, the Trump-Russia disinformation collusion hoax, all of it. Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think it's shameful. If I may finish just answering, this is really important.
Abby Phillips interrupts Vivek as he's giving his town hall answer. Shout out to our good friends over at Mediaite who says Ramaswamy interrupted her. Huh? He was in the middle of making a point and she would not let him.
I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you here because
she even says, I'm going to interrupt you.
The establishment doesn't approve of this message. I know this, but we should be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is important to talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many there were.
So you're saying that that you have not seen any evidence that there were.
We've seen multiple informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked to
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this and you can come back and question me?
Well, let me clarify.
I know it's very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify.
You know what I think it is? I bet that Abby Phillips has a producer in her ear saying, stop him, stop him, stop him. Don't let him say it. Don't let him say it. Oh, no one's got an earpiece in my head telling me what to say. Heavens, what do we do when Tim Pool is exposing the from the New York Times? In Proud Boys' January 6 sedition trial, FBI informants abound. Oh, Vivek was right about that. We know that there were FBI informants all over the place. The question is, how many individuals there were actual FBI agents? When asked, they said, we cannot give you that number. Okay, well, I do think I'll push back a little bit on Vivek, but of course, Abby Phillips is going off the deep end here. I'd say to Vivek, I think there is reason to believe federal law enforcement was on the ground. It would be absurd not to think that. You mean to tell me Tim Pool, 7 months before this happened, made a video, and this is true, where I said, yo, these Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, 3%ers or whatever, they're going to like in November rush to the White House and like try and storm in the building or something. And for this, Media Matters says Tim Pool had foreknowledge. I love it. When I make bad predictions, and I do often, they're like, haha, Tim Pool's wrong. When I make close predictions, they're like, he must have known. Well, I was wrong. Nobody stormed the White House in November, but come January 6th, you got something kind of like that. Now, you mean to tell me that a dude who sits here and complains on the internet, reading the AP and the New York Times, figured this out and the feds did not? Spare me the BS. Of course, federal law enforcement knew what was going on. And of course, plainclothes cops were there. Yo, I have been to protests with 30 people marching down the street and they have law enforcement undercover. You mean to tell me in DC, where it's all feds, not a single cop, not a single plainclothes cop, when 250,000 people are descending on the city? Lies. And that is CNN's garbage.
Clarify my
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told you, I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot?
So let's do this.
An inside job.
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is, because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
The government had a plot. Well, okay. I think I can try this one, Abby Phillips and CNN. How about January 6th footage shows Capitol cops escorting QAnon shaman to Senate floor? Whoa! Wait a minute. You mean the dude that they paraded around and made him the like mascot of January 6th was actually escorted into the building? Well, hold on there a minute. They escorted him in? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The police escorted this man in. It's almost like the whole thing was staged. But I tell you this, if the Capitol Police, who are federal, allowed this man in, and not only allowed him in, but actually escorted him to the Senate chambers, that would be an inside job. So where is your evidence of a government plot? Let me try this again. How about police escorted the January 6th shaman to the Senate floor? Next question. Because if the police did not do that intentionally, what were they doing? Are you really going to make the argument that how many, it was like 9 officers that were standing around and there were, I think, 2 or 3 that were escorting him? All those officers are just like, I have no idea what's going on. We have no plan here whatsoever. There's a strange man in a shaman costume. Let's bring him to the Senate floor for no reason. Do you think the QAnon shaman walked in and said, pardon me, ma'am, I'd like to go to the Senate chambers? Or do you think the police were like, follow us? Which one makes more sense? But at any rate, none of that matters, because we're not talking about definitive proof. We're talking about evidence of a government plot. I would say that police escorting the shaman guy to the Senate floor and then having photos taken of him that are paraded all through the media indicates evidence of a government plot. Now, for all of those in the media who will try to lie, as they often do, I did not say proof positive or beyond a reasonable doubt. I said evidence. Let's break this one down, as I've done in the past, but for those who didn't hear it, here we go. A man works at a liquor store. One day, people find that he was shot and killed. Someone shot him with a .357 Magnum. Horrible. Horrible. Well, a witness is interviewed, and they said, all I heard was shouting and then a bang. But I'll tell you this. Last week, I saw old man Fitzgerald, who lives down the street, yelling at that guy. Evidence. Is it proof of anything? No, it's evidence. It is information or materials suggesting a possible outcome. So they then say, let us go track down this Mr. Fitzgerald. Did I say Fitzgerald? They go to his house, and what do they find? .357 Magnum shell casings on his porch, matching that of the gun that was fired to kill the man at the liquor store. They collect them, put them in a bag, use this evidence to get a warrant for the man's home and search it, and lo, they find. That's right. A Winchester repeater .357 Magnum rifle. Whoa. Well, hold on there a minute. After we used this evidence, probable cause, etc., and went to a judge and then asked them, hey, look, a block away, we find the same shell casings. They search the guy's house and find a weapon. Once again, evidence. The man had motive. The man had a possible murder weapon. But lo and behold, crime scene investigators determined that the weapon that was fired was in fact not a rifle for a variety of reasons. Well, we don't know for sure, but then old man Fitzgerald shows up. In fact, he had a plane ticket last week to go to Cancun, and he had been away for the entire week where this happened. So who could have done it? We don't know. We can tell you this. The evidence collected turned out not to be proof of anything being done wrong. And this is what they don't explain to you in the media. When they say there's no evidence of Joe Biden committing crimes, there's tons of evidence. Is it proof? Well, that'll be for a jury to decide. Does it prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? Evidence, information to suggest there may be, evidence can mean a lot of things, right? You form a hypothesis in a scientific experiment, you collect your evidence, and lo, the evidence you believed led to one conclusion actually doesn't. This is the game they're playing. So let me just make sure it's clear for all of them. Police opening doors. Here's from Business Insider the day after January 6th. Officers calmly posed for selfies and appeared to open gates for protesters during the madness of the Capitol building insurrection. Here's Snopes. Did U.S. Capitol police officer take a selfie with a rioter? True. Huh. Now, of course, by all means, there are explanations for this. An explanation could be that the police, being overwhelmed, decided to give up and that they weren't going to be able to win a fight. And to avoid injury, they simply opened the doors and backed off. It's a fair argument. The only problem is there is at least one guy, I think two, who were acquitted because the judge said clearly, you can see on video the police officers waving them in. Uh-oh. Well, now what? Is that evidence of a government plot? It is. Is it proof of a government plot? Well, I don't know if it's proof, but I certainly believe there's enough evidence here to warrant an investigation. And I believe we deserve answers as to how many federal agents were there on January 6th. Because let me stress, you have one of two options. Your first option is that despite the fact everyone knew this rally was happening, despite the fact that even Jamie Raskin, a Democrat, showed videos of numerous people saying this is going to get crazy, despite all of that, the police decided not to have any plainclothes officers? You expect me to believe that? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And they're federal agents.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in planning or executing January 6th?
Planning or executing January 6th. I'd like to try this again. Ma'am, the police escorted the shaman in. Thank you. Have a nice day. They used the photos of the shaman far and wide to make to show the shocking and egregious nature of what happened. Okay, well, video shows that he was escorted to that. So, yeah, the federal agents did that. Like all of the cops in D.C. work for the federal government. So thank you. Next question. Did I say proof? No, there's your evidence. Thank you. Next question. It looks like an inside job. Now, the fact remains, it was an inside job simply because if one officer fanned them in and there's video of it, then you had an inside job. If a single cop pressed the button to open the mag-locked doors, we know that some of the doors were mag-locked. Ain't no human opening a mag-locked door like that. Maybe break the door down or something. We know someone pressed the button to open it. We don't know who did. But I believe all of this is evidence that it was an inside job. Cops let them in. Thank you and have a nice day.
So I'm going to give you hard facts, and if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go through this, and you can push back on it after that. And you can push back on that, and let's do this fairly. Why did they suppress footage of now what's been released? 200 hours of footage of shooting rubber bullets into that crowd, shooting tear gas into that crowd. You didn't see that before. You saw what the response was to that. Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing people in,
again,
right through the front door.
The vast majority of that footage.
All right, you know what? Here we go. I got to just send this to Vivek, okay? I'm going to text the guy. I'm going to text him. You got to give me this. I'm going to give you the story from NPR. The next time, Vivek, you are standing before the mainstream media and they're criticizing you, simply mention this. From NPR, U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden issued the verdict from the bench after hearing testimony without a jury in the case of Matthew Martin. McFadden, who was nominated by Trump, acquitted Martin of all 4 counts. Really? McFadden said that it was reasonable for Martin to believe that outnumbered police officers allowed him and others to enter the Capitol through the rotunda doors on January 6th. The judge also said Martin's actions were about as minimal and non-serious as anyone who was at the Capitol that day. The judge said it was reasonable to believe that the police allowed them in. That's it. So when they say, what's your evidence that the government was involved? I'd be like, first thing I'd say is, well, if you're asking for definitive proof of like a letter written by, I don't know, Joe Biden claiming they'd do it, well, good luck with that. But if you're talking about evidence, which should warrant an investigation, how about a judge ruling in the case of Matthew Martin saying it was reasonable to believe the police had allowed them in the building? How about the footage released of the Capitol police officers escorting the January 6th shaman to the Senate floor? Thank you and have a nice day. I can say it over and over again.
Evidence should have been released before, Abby.
Mr. Ramaswamy, the vast majority of the footage shows police officers being overrun
and I want to talk about one more
by
case.
violent
this is really important.
rioters. That's
I'm
what
going
the
to
vast
give
majority
you some hard facts.
of it shows.
So here's what entrapment
you
is.
can't cherry pick.
I'm not cherry picking. If I may finish, Abby. If I may finish, Abby. I'm not cherry picking.
Examples.
To the contrary. To the contrary.
You know who cherry picked? You know who cherry picked? The government. That is what happened.
The government cherry picked 12 hours of footage when there was 200 hours of footage. So cherry picking was the government, not me. Release the whole thing. And let me just finish one thing too, because this is super important as a topic.
So I
think this is a civil libertarian issue of our time.
When
Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. I want to be really clear on this, because it's the same issue in the same FBI, same even part of the FBI. 3 people who were in an alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer were acquitted at the end of trial because it was entrapment. That is, government agents put them up to do something they otherwise wouldn't have done. They gave them credit cards with spending limits of up to $5,000, encouraged them to buy munitions, plan something they weren't otherwise willing to plan. So much so, and I want people at home to know this, especially CNN viewers to know this, is that one of the jurors went to those defendants and apologized afterwards, gave him a hug, apologized, seeing what the government had put a poor guy up to who had to go to some Mexican restaurant across the street to get hot water. These people were exploited with credit cards up to $5,000, FBI agents putting them up to a kidnapping plot that we were told was true but was entrapment. Same thing with the Capitol Police, people letting them in freely. Many of those people then being charged.
Look,
the government cannot put you up to do something and then charge you for it.
The government cannot put you up to do something and then charge for it. Police officers opening the door, then having you arrested later. It's the Capitol Police doing it. Let's make this real simple. The Capitol Police opened the door and escorted people inside. Not everybody. Some people were violent. Those people should be criminally charged. But of the people who walked inside befuddled as Capitol Police allowed them in, you can't allow someone in and then go and arrest them, as the Capitol Police are doing, and the FBI. Here's what CNN has to say. Fact-checking Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay. They say, Ramaswamy's claim that rioters were invited to the Capitol is false. About 140 police officers were assaulted while trying to stop the mob from breaching the Capitol. There were hours-long battles between police and rioters near some entrances. CNN obtained footage from police body-worn cameras showing how dozens of officers engage in hand-to-hand combat. You see what they're doing. They say there were plenty of instances where rioters waltzed into the Capitol without a fight, but only after they had stormed past the barricade and lie. I already pointed out NPR's reporting. The judge said it was reasonable to believe that they were actually allowed in. You cannot call a guy walking down the street who walks up a path with no barricades, through open doors with waving and smiling police. You can't call that person a rioter. Okay, there were hundreds of thousands of people there that day. This is the game they're playing. They say in July, Ray told Congress the notion that somehow the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by the FBI. Sources or agents is ludicrous and a disservice to our brave, hardworking, dedicated men and women. Okay, well, that's not what I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that there were agents there and we want to know how many. Of course there were. It'd be absurd not to think so. I think I made my point clear. And I think Vivek's point is clear. The meltdown CNN displayed when he began speaking about this is beautiful. And I'll tell you what I think Vivek's plan is. That. A lot of people are like, he's not going to be the president. You know, so what's he doing? He doesn't want to be VP. Vivek masterfully earned his way onto mainstream media debate stages, and then spoke the truth. Tremendous win. It's going to do well for him in the future. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.